make sure I put this link also in the Facebook already.
Okay.
Well, welcome everyone. We have we have a bumper attendance. Yeah, our attendance was starting to trickle, and then it's like, okay, let's invite some famous people and maybe get everybody to come to our meeting. Last time I wasn't here, and I was really grateful for Mark for hosting. And today we have two special guests. Here we go. And so the first half, we're going to be talking with Colin Tribe, who's got a new book out. And then the second half, after Colin shows us all the wonderful things in his new book and different exercises, we've got like 2 handouts you already have, but there's a third one that he just sent me, so I'm going to give to everyone in the chat. Then Peter Luongo is going to join us from New York. So, all right, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Just a big shout out. Where is everyone coming in from? I'm in Boston. Let's see. Who else is on the mainland besides me? Marisa. Marisa, is this your first time here?
I may have come a long time ago. I'm not sure.
Okay, Jerry also. First
Moses.
time. Right. All right. Anybody else in the Boston area besides the 3 of us? No. Okay. In America? Mark, right? Mark. Okay, Jeanne. Hi. Where are you calling in from?
Novato, California, which is just north of San Francisco.
Oh, okay. So you know. Oh, right.
So
I wrote
Mark
to
and I
you.
are friends.
Right. Mark
and
told me
with
about you.
Moses also.
Oh, right. Okay. Good. And Steve is also in California.
Also, yeah.
Also in California. We've got 3 people in California. Wonderful. Monica, you're in Canada, yeah?
Oh, is that Jeanne?
Yeah, that's good. Okay. And Moses, I guess he's listening. He's on the East Coast as well. And then we go to Hawaii. Rick, are you the only one in Hawaii?
Yeah, I think I'm the only one in Hawaii.
Okay.
I'm all the way out in Hilo, Hawaii. So.
All right. Now, I don't know if Kelly is going to join us, but I do know that there's a festival going on in Sydney, yeah? So Dan might be in on that. Oh, Steve. Is Steve in, I can't remember if it's California or Canada. I get the 2 confused. Well, you're muted. I'm sorry, I don't mean that.
So Sydney, Australia.
Oh, good. We have a representative, Australia. All right, great. So let's go back to Europe then. I think our European representatives are here. Bruce, very late for you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi there. No, it's 11, and I've been hiking in the mountains and got back in time, so I'm very happy to be with you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
so I'm in Newark in England, and it's 10 o'clock here.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us, Colin. So let me introduce Colin Tribe. I'm gonna spotlight him. I met Colin 2 years ago at the very beginning of the pandemic. Yeah, not socially distanced at all. Beginning of March.
Before that.
Right before that, and I bought 2 books and unfortunately, let's see here, 2 books, and unfortunately I should have bought more books. So I'm catching up. I should have bought. So the book that's coming out is a follow-on to this book, Discovering Fingerstyle Ukulele. Is that right?
Yes.
Colin. Okay. So Colin, you're famous for being an examiner and also being very prolific, especially during the pandemic, coming up with, like, was it 1 exercise per day or something?
Yeah, I did 80 workouts, 1 a day, which I followed up with maybe my most ambitious project, which I'm still arguing with my publishers to get them to do it. There's a strange thing about my publishers, Schott Music. They're very well known worldwide for classical music. They do the Eulenberg scores, those nice little yellow books of symphonies and such like. But they have this pop and rock and international section. And I started working in their international section doing folk tunes. They like doing folk tunes because there's no copyright problems. And after 3 of those, and a 4th one done by a lovely lady and brilliant ukulele player, as well as a guitarist, his name's just gone for the moment, but it'll come back. She did the Scottish one. I did the English, Irish, and American one. I floated the idea of doing a tutor, so that was one of the ones you bought then. But the other thing I've done is a set of studies in every key, just like the 48 preludes and fugues, but mine's just 24. But it goes through every key, and I've recorded them all, and they're all on YouTube. And I was doing that as a free thing, just for people to sort of try and extend their knowledge and work out, well, how do you make something sensible in D flat, And of course, every key has. I don't go along the idea of a key having the tone having a response, cold and warm, which used to be very prevalent. I don't do that one. That doesn't grab me. But technically, the way you need to be able to reach different frets and different chord shapes because of the different key you're in, I love that. And then doing that and trying to come up with good music at the same time was a nice challenge.
Wow. So I was one of the lucky ones on your mailing list to receive those 80 exercises. Was that just if you're on your mailing list, you get those exercises, or how?
People signed up to be on the workout.
Oh, okay. The workout, right.
Yeah.
And then you were also working on these 30 songs, which just got published. So today we're going to ask you about that. You got 2 handouts. I'm just going to put, I think everybody's got them. Yeah. But I'm going to put them in the chat as well, so to make sure everybody's got them. And that wasn't easy to get this book published, because you wrote something about you needed permission from
it's the publishers have generally relaxed what way they will allow to happen. So Hal Leonard, who are the biggest publishers of all and own most of the copyrights, will now delve into their resources, and for a fee, of course, they will license other people to produce the work. So it doesn't say Hal Leonard anywhere in the music. It goes back to the original holders, like on both sides now. It was Sequon Publishing and Westminster Music. You get some which have got incredibly long ownerships, and some people you still can't get hold of. You can't do Eagles songs and George Harrison because of arguments in the estate, so they won't allow it to happen. So that all had to go through a process. And my difficulty in the first state was Schott wanted to do things which they thought were going to be very popular as tunes. Unfortunately, I've got over 2,000 arrangements to choose from. So this could be book one of several, and we'll see how that goes. It depends on sales. But I started and sifted through and came up with a list of about 40, and then we whittled it down to the ones you've got in the book. And what I thought I would do is, for each song, eventually I'm going to do a sheet like the arpeggios one, which was based on what happens in both sides now. But of course, arpeggios get used in lots of things. Now, one of the things I thought was, if people are following this, it's also good if they try what I'm playing and sort of feedback how it goes for them and what other ideas they have, rather than just be me talking to you, so we can actually share ideas. So shall I start and go through the arpeggios one?
Yeah, just one quick question. Am I right to assume that most of these songs you wrote for high G ukulele? Or
all of them.
All of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there are fairly simple ways of going through and adapting it for low G. And of course, if you play it on a tenor, which has got both low and high G, then you can fool around with which of those you want to get to play. That's not quite so easy. But yeah, because it's the voice of the ukulele that I love best. The fact that you've got all of these minor seconds and the closeness of the harmony. I just find it very attractive. So that's what I've done. Okay, I will lower my camera a bit so that hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So it's a bit, being on Zoom, it's not quite how I teach. Can you see that? Okay, and my t-shirt just says, without music, the world will be flat.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, Nadia gave that my pianist friend, who might be with us at some time. I don't know. Okay, so arpeggios on the ukulele. One of the first things that I did was this idea. Is everybody know about Pima and the idea of, okay, so if you're just doing Pima, then you can get a very nice 6/8 like in Alleluia. Now it is an arpeggio, but because all the notes of the broken chord are there, but they're not in the musical order you'd want for that. So when I was doing both sides now, and I wanted this beginning, instead of starting with the thumb, I start with the index finger, and I call this impact because in fact you're going I-M-P-A. Okay, there's no C and it's a no T, but never mind. And that comes at the beginning and at the end, and it feeds very neatly into the tune where you're getting. And you're keeping some sense of this arpeggio idea of breaking the chords beneath the melody. Now, we'll look at other things where that happens. One thing I did in the Discovering Fingerstyle book was a lot of work on Malaguena, very famous guitar piece. And in that one, I've got the idea that it starts with an arpeggio of D. And you can do it that way, where you're letting it be legato, where all the notes just run into each other. Or there's another very nice way of doing it, where you just track your, play them all with your thumb and just take off as you play it, so you're getting this staccato. Then in bar 5, I go to this one. That top string, you can play it with M or I or A. I've said to do it with A, but I find fingering I'd sort of do as a second thing. After I've done it instinctively, I might think, well, I'll write it down like this. But the mere fact that I can do that shows that it is not fixed. And if you find a way that works for your fingers, then fine. There's another one where you go to. And that's all in this studies on Malaguena and how you build that one up. The next arpeggio is one from a piece called Jasmine Flower, where I wanted to get this very rapid effect. And here you're doing Pima backwards, Amip. Sorry. And in this one, you've got to be able to play these octaves. And when you go to 5020. So if you're teaching it, then you must make sure that you can hear these open strings. And also there's slight slides you can put. If you're going from 5 up to 7 to 10. and those make little echo sounds, which are very effective. Right at the end of it, there's a rather strange notation where you're going from this, from 7, 4 and 7, so an E, up to the G, and then after you, as you do that G, you come back like that. Okay, is this making sense? I was just trying to get different ways of showing arpeggios. This next one is a triplet figure from Romanza. Now, if I was doing it on a low G, I'd probably put that A in and doing it like a guitarist would. But I always feel free to change the harmonies to fit fingering, and you know, that's quite a difficult stretch. One of the things is, when we're looking at Chariots of Fire, it comes up, is if you can't do some big stretch. When I started playing, I was playing on a soprano, and so lots of things I did then were because I could reach them easily and ridiculously, like an E flat, 3 to a 10. Now I can still do that on a concert size, but it isn't easy and it takes quite a lot of strength. And I mean, my favorite one of all is this. This is 2950, which is all A's. And I think the uke's the only instrument where you can play 4 identical notes at the same time. And I wrote a piece called The Flea Bites Back, based on that, and moving it, it goes into a boogie eventually. So yes, stretching, you don't want to overstretch your hand and hurt yourself. So a good idea is to look at the music and maybe manipulate your hands, so, or the chord. If I want, for instance, this A minor could be played like this, and change that chord. That's a lovely, very useful A minor, 5, 4, 5, 7. The next one is from the Irish folk tune book. And the idea here was to show how the tune becomes part of the arpeggios. So after this beginning, A, B, C, then you go into a D chord. And there you're just following those. And you can use M and I, or you could use P as well. I've put P on here, but I think I would use I on the D note on the C string. And then eventually goes. And notice in that the melody note, in the way I write things down, it's not so easy to see if you've got whole bar notes, or semi-breves as we call them in the UK. I want to make it as the same as the harmony it's with, so it's the same note twice, and that happens a lot in Chariots of Fire as well. So you accent it a bit, but then it carries on and it becomes part of the harmony. And this is another thing in my arrangements. Often I will reuse notes, partly because the ukulele doesn't have as much resonance as other instruments. And so you need to play the note twice to keep it going if you're not going into playing tremolos on something. So that was, so there, and that one, you got this. Bringing the melody out as you're carrying on doing the harmony. The next one from the American folk tunes was St. James Infirmary. And there's one part where I wanted the arpeggio in a D minor to carry on. And so that's an idea. It's like the guitar Carcasi did lots of studies where you'd do part of it and then you'd carry on using the open strings. And D minor's a nice key to do it because you've got the A7 as the dominant seventh. And A7 is just a wonderful chord. One thing that I expect people to learn through my arrangements is how knowing the chord shapes, the movable chord shapes everywhere. And so that you know if you're doing, say, an A7, then you've got another A7. Do you know all of these shapes? And a good practice, if you're learning one of the pieces, is to look at them and isolate them as a teaching idea. So you say, yeah, well, this week we'll look at all the B flat sevenths or all the C sevenths, of which there are millions because of the open C, G, and E. And sometimes I'm arranging and I'll suddenly come across a chord. When you're doing a C7 and you want the melody note to be the high C, that is an obvious way of doing it, 3, 4. But if I want the low C, if I'm going up as well, I can do this 0, 4, 6, 3, which I only came across about 6 months ago as an idea, but I've used it in lots of things. And just, it's lovely to have an instrument where you can suddenly make new discoveries. It's quite a blessing. At the second part, bar 3 of this St. James Infirmary, I'm just exploring B flat 7, B flat 7, A7, A7. And again, if you've been practicing knowing where B flat 7 is there, it's there, it's there, and it's there, then these maneuverings between the different places don't become easy. It's never easy. There is a mistaken belief that playing ukulele is easy. No, you can make it as difficult as you want to. Sometimes I'll do things easy on purpose because of the audience that I'm working with. But I was thinking for the people here, they will have quite a lot of this in their kit bag. And if they haven't, well, go and work at it because it's essential that you know it really. Scarborough Fair, another one where you're putting the arpeggio with the melody, and this is in the English folk tune book. And so on. I mean, that's the famous figure. And in many ways, I followed the Paul Simon version of it and put the canticle, which became part of it. So that was what I did to go through to show one simple idea from both sides now and how it got extended, looking at using that to say, well, now let's find more about arpeggios. And I fully intend to do that for each of the songs. One of the things I don't want to do is just play the songs because I know some people watch my videos over and over again, and that doesn't sell books. So I'm not going to sort of show all the hand positions. So like, we'll go and look at what I've got for Bridge Over Troubled Water now, which is, so if you've got both the handouts there, this is on page 1 of the full handout.
This is the second link, the 4-page handout with both sides now on top.
Yeah, the both sides now. So I talked about the impact there, the right hand fingers. Yeah, the string orders where the instrument, when I'm doing, the instrument is dictating the arpeggio. Sometimes you want the music to dictate what you're playing rather than the ukulele. It's a fine line because they work together, but sometimes they have slightly different agendas. Okay, a bit of Bridge Over Troubled Water. At the time he was writing this in the 70s, he'd been listening to some gospel music, and there was a great pianist, Larry Nechtel, I think you pronounce it, and he did all the piano parts of it. And there was the bass player in it is incredible. And if you want to listen to a bass accompaniment to something which is out of this world, listen back to one I did a few weeks ago called The Only Living Boy in New York. I was staying with my son, who was a wonderful guitarist, and we just had one of the radio programs on, and it came on at a time when we were actually listening to the music rather than just chatting over breakfast. And I thought, I've got to do that. It's so wonderful. I intended to put some more of what is in the bass line into my arrangement, but it didn't quite work. But this I think in the book is good. And it carries on like that. So when I'm thinking about this one, maybe it's the pull-offs in bar 5 that you want to think about doing. And I'll play a bit more from the book and then show you how the next bit fits in. This is looking at bar 10. So the tune after that starts. Now it's this slide in bar 10. It's an interesting one because if you play it carelessly, you lose the C in the harmony. So you have to, and notice another thing, I put quite a lot of vibrato onto these things so that you get that sustain. Then in the next bar, when times are, or whatever, I like this. I first did that in a song called El Comanchero. Which was great fun to do. And then you can actually, in that one, you can change the harmony instead of so you can maneuver the chord to make it fit. There's another night, no, I won't go into that. But
isn't that in your book, in the intro, you talked about the tribe strum? Is that the one?
No, that's
I'll be
coming
one.
on to that one a bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, I had someone today, oh yes, they wanted O Solo Mio, which I did, and that I did it. They'd got the music and they saw the way I'd written down this strum, and of course they don't look like they sound, because you know you do that and you're playing 16 notes, and how are you going to write them all down? So you could do wavy lines or whatever, or just put a couple of 30-second notes in, but it doesn't really get it. So I did a tutorial for them. So it's a bit like this really. And I love doing those because I do them warts and all. So if I make errors, then fine. People see, yeah, it's not so simple. He goes wrong. So yeah, I'm only human. Okay, let's just carry on a bit on this one because there's some other lovely bits in this. Notes. Sometimes you can do these lovely slides. Notice I'm getting a C7. Here I've got that there because I want to go. Then a beautiful chord change where you've got F, D, G. Then perhaps my favorite maneuver is when you go F, F diminished, and then it sounds, your hand is going up, but the notes are going down. It's a really lovely sort of physical thing. You're going the wrong way for the sound, not like that. Later on, it goes into that. So there's some lovely arpeggios at in the end of that one where it's going. Then and there I've used an F minor. We all know that one. But you need to be able to maneuver to there. One of the things I get is some problems with my little finger, because I do so much work with a little finger that it can sort of slide too much and I cut a little bit there, and sometimes I just have to rest it, or even wear something on the finger instead. Okay, let's go on to the next one, which is, are there any questions? Because I'd be happy to, if there are any people, are you getting sort of questions asked to you? Because
So far, no questions.
No, okay, everybody understands, wonderful. Now in Can't Buy Me Love, the introduction is in A minor, and then it goes to the relative major in C major. It's an unusual Beatles one of the facts. It's mostly a blues, but they wouldn't ever do it just as a blues. Well, they did a couple, but not many. So that's the beginning in E minor and A minor. One of the joys of writing in C is you got all that open string stuff, but then when you get to the next chord, you're suddenly doing F, where you're reaching up to the 10. Then you want an F7 with that D in it, so you change back to that one. Then up to this G. And because of the syncopation, it makes it tricky. I'm always thinking, should I follow the chord sequence with the syncopation of the melody notes or keep on the beat? And this one I've kept on the beat almost all the time. Then there's one, well, there's more than one thing. This G chord, which you'll know from C, D and all these. The first time you can play a major chord on the ukulele in the correct arpeggio order is 0, 11, 10, 10. Well, actually the G minor is 0, 10, 10, 10. There they're all in the right order if you need it to be like that. And also if you want to have a bit of legato where that G, you can move away and that G is still sounding. Whereas if you're doing this one, the G is there, and as soon as you move somewhere else, you lose it. So it can be a good idea to get that note to be free. And there's another nice one in this one. Well, I'm doing E minor, where I could play 11, 12, 10, or even that, but that wouldn't be so good because I don't want to. I'll often use 4-note chords, but try not to repeat too many notes. You know, it's the old thing. If you're playing an E minor down there, do you use that fingering, 0, 4, 3, 2, where you're doubling the G? Do you do this one, where you're doubling the B? Or my favorite often is that one where I double the E. So I play 0, 4, 0, 2. So for instance, in El Condor Paso is a very good example where you use that sort of shape. So in this one, when I do the E minor, and then to this A minor, this 5, 4, 5, 7. So it was really this stretch in this one. Okay. In Don't Worry, Be Happy, it was the idea of that idea of where you want this melody note to stand out above the bouncy chords. And then there was a bit of tricky stuff. Where you're playing a D minor, this is in bar 11. And yeah, instead of sliding up, because I want to keep this D, that note A there. So I'm using those two fingers coming down. And it's a very useful thing to be able to do, to have those fingers. And right at the beginning in the tutor book you've got, there are some exercises on doing these finger patterns It's all to do with strengthening the third and fourth fingers, which are, or fourth and fifth if you're a pianist. I did a tune called the D.O. Blues, and that is where, to practice a new chord, you'd play it in a sequence where you're going to go to an open. So if you want to learn this D minor in a different way, just do it and play O in between. Hence the D.O. Blues. You got the O by just an open chord. Okay, another Beatles one, just because it happened to be there. Eleanor Rigby, again in C, so. Now this uses these two chords, E minor and C, in beautiful sort of combinations, and a lot of work for the little finger. But you start with, now, okay, when you look at the music, you've just got that. Now you've got to find ways of doing that chord. So you, after you've done the 12, so you're playing the syncopation, getting the melody note in between. And then when you get into the E minor, you've got to do a pull off. Then having this basic shape with fingers 2 and 3. And when it gets to bar 5, you're doing the main part of the tune. It's like that. Lovely syncopated melody. And there's a bit in the original where they have a cello line. Now this is where using a low G would work better than using a high G, because suddenly, why has the octave changed? Because it needs to, but you can still do it. Okay, now if you look at the next one, Fly Me to the Moon, it's a tune I've been playing a long time and really love. It's not too difficult. I used to do it in D minor, and but since I've been doing it in A minor, which is easier to sing in, I've done a lot of work on it. Okay, so that's the first 4 bars. You listen to any six. Can I just have a sip of water? Sorry. Singers do it. They might not start on the first beat. Fly me to the moon and let me play. And they'll stretch the melody. So, okay, this is the basic idea of the melody. But if you hear it in a different way or you're improvising on it, then change it. The reason I showed this one is to show the two different ways of accompanying the melody. So you've got the first just with half notes and quarter notes. So all those half notes. But then from bar 5, the same thing, but this is the repeated section. You'd carry on like that. And the one thing, when I was researching this one, I found that originally it had been written in 3/4 time. And it was Frank Sinatra who recorded it first, and it was with, I think, Quincy Jones, and they decided, no, it'd be more punchy if we did it in 4/4. But it's nice to do it in the other key. And one thing which isn't written here, when I was doing it in F, to have this. As an ending to it, which shows using a bar chord with 3 fingers. When I'm doing it in C, so something like that. So, but you're still using this idea. Okay, Okay, I can see clearly now. The idea in this one, how do you mute? You can use just a straight fourth finger across. You can try and do it with this hand, but you get extraneous noises. You could play the C like that. If I can, I'll put the lowest note available into a chord, which is why I tend to use that one if I can. Not always. And one of my favorite muting exercises is in Rock Around the Clock. Where you start, you just want to hear the C. So you casually, first finger on the G string, little finger on the A and E, and that'll allow the C to sound. Just with a standard strum. Then you move the little finger over, so you're releasing the E. Get that one working. And then you take the G one off, take the first one. Then you're in. How are we doing for time? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, that's a great trick. Thanks for showing us that.
Oh, the other thing
Rockwood
that
song
works
play-
in is the wedding march. So it's strange that Rock Around the Clock and the Wedding March by Mendelssohn should share the same musical idea, but they do. Which came first? Well, we all know which came first. Okay, in Mamma Mia, I said, how long do I have?
So you have, 3 minutes actually.
Okay, time goes so fast when you're having fun. So we all know that tricky syncopation in that where you must play the G sharp before you get to the actual C augmented chord because it's there. And I just wanted to show you some ideas about this idea of where then you go with it, with this. When I get it in the first part of G, so that's what's happening at bar 3 and 4. Then in bar 5, you've suddenly got to squeeze your fingers so you get that. I've loved playing around with augmented chords. My favorite one was always raining in my heart. In the middle of that, one of my favorite tricks, which I think is in the tutor book you've got. Where you've got these two notes, the C sharp and A, fixed, but as you're doing it, you're moving octaves, E, F, F sharp, G through it, and just plays up. Is that right? It's always one of these things when you... So with these double stops, you can actually get that to work. Then the next one's an E7. Okay, it was just a nice combination of sounds that I liked when I was working on that one. Okay, have we got questions and things that people want to say?
Yeah, do we have any questions? I have to say for me, this really helps me greatly because I've got your book and I've been looking at them and putting myself in the position of a student. And every time I come across an obstacle, I think, oh, I I can't learn that piece. I'm going to move on. So I'm really glad you sent me your classification of skill levels. Are you planning to put that on your, somewhere as an addendum for people, or your YouTube page?
Well, in the UK, it'll be in the VCM the next time we upgrade that syllabus, and it'll show on that.
Right.
I'm always a bit wary of setting grades for particular things, because you get piece we talked about before everybody else was around, this rumba toccata. It was on, I think it was on at grade 4, and then but now it's grade 6 with associated board or Trinity. So there are, my feeling is that setting grades is more an art than a science. And I know you can say, well, this is a skill you should have at this time, but it depends who you're dealing with. If you're working with an adult who's played guitar before and has got strong fingers and can play bar notes, then everything can be much easier for them after a year's practice. So people who want to look at the syllabus, you can get hold of the copies, but I'm not sure how well it would go down in the States as an idea of following. I've had some people who have done it. I've got a lady in New York at the moment, in Providence, Rhode Island, which is a lovely name if you like Eagles songs. And she's working through, and she started at grade A, which is total beginner, just playing melody lines. But now she's got up to grade 2 and is working on proper fingerstyle arrangements. There's nothing in the book below grade 2. It's not an easy write, unless you wanted to do one of the a melody only version of something. And the other thing that people might like to comment is the format, because what I decided was, I often play with other musicians who aren't ukulele players, and they look at the ukulele tab and they look at the notation. And if you've written it for a high G, you get the notes, the harmonies can be higher than the melody. How do you tell which is which? Now, this Sibelius, which I use, can show it quite well. But I thought, well, most ukulele players don't actually look at those notes. And those who know enough about music can work out what they are from the tab. Sorry.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is put in the chat a bonus that Colin has arranged for us, which is, well, rest in peace, Vangelis. You've got the
Oh,
cherry
yes.
fire. Yeah, so I'll put it in the chat so everybody can download that as a bonus for attending.
As a bonus, yes, that's perfect.
Thank you.
Sorry, I've got, yeah.
You got something. So, yeah, if there are no questions, how about I just follow on later with you, Colin? Thank you so much for.
I've got a question, Anne.
Oh, Steve, yes.
Can I just ask one? Yeah. Colin, I bought a whole series of your PDFs, must be 6-7 years ago. And basically what you get is, say, a song that's 32 bars, and then what I was looking for and seeing, like advanced ukulele players, is some breakdowns or improvisation around that 32 bars. I'm just wondering, is that something that you'd work on or have available, or some examples of?
Colin, did you catch that? Because you were connecting to audio. Okay. Maybe what we could do is, let's, in the interest of time, can we follow on that later? Steve, would you type your question in the chat?
Sure.
Because
Yep.
Colin couldn't hear that. He was just out. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Colin, very much. I think we need to digest this a bit. And lo and behold, I just received something in the mail from Schott. So I'm going to, it's your book. So I'm looking forward to writing a review of it and sharing. All right. Thank you, Colin. I think it would be really nice for you to join us in another meeting where we could talk about the grading system classification, because initially I was of the view that, oh gosh, it's so rigid. But after going through Jeff Peterson's progressive, classical repertoire, I noticed it feels good to know, I'm finishing grade 1. Now I'm going to do grade 2. It just feels good to know where you're going. So that's why when I got your book, it was like 30 of them. I don't know where to start, Luckily, both sides now, the very first piece was like one of the easiest pieces. So it gave me the sense of gratification, like, okay, I'm willing to go forward. So putting myself, in the shoes of somebody who's just invested in a book, they probably want to know, well, what can I do? And that kind of thing. Okay. You're muted, Colin. Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody for listening and putting up with me and my strange ukulele behavior. It's an instrument that I just love it and play, and happy to keep on arranging for as long as it'll let me.
Thank you so much, Colin.
Okay.
All right.
Good night, though. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All right, great. Wow. So Steve, thanks for your question. Maybe we could get that from Colin later, the answer to your question.
Yeah, I will try and answer.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Colin. So now we're in the second half of our 90-minute meeting. Peter has joined us. Peter, hello.
How you doing?
All right, Peter Luongo. I had the fortunate situation of joining his workshop last Wednesday only. Yeah, last Wednesday, and I have to say I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so here you are. I invited you here so I could ask you some questions about your teaching method. Because in just a matter of 90 minutes, you managed to show people how to do melody, chord melody, go up the neck, play movable scale, major scale up the neck, sing 3-part harmony.
4, but who's counting?
Right. Is this your usual method? Just dosing them with this? I mean, what's it called? Because you don't know what levels people are. You just said intermediate to advanced player. But a lot of people would consider themselves, well, I must be intermediate because I've been playing for, 5 years. I must be intermediate. But I'm sure many of them might be lost because they've never actually, opened up the black box. Yeah. That is the ukulele fretboard.
I think, Anne, you've made a really salient point, and it is a black box. It's an ukulele, but it's a black box in this sense. Just to make the point, there is a very broad, comprehensive approach that I've been taking to teaching ukulele for 40 years now. That has been instruction for children. For a good number of those years, but also for adults, including teaching at the university level here in British Columbia. I'm currently here in New York, but that's another matter. The reality is that the ukulele shows so much more than what a typical player or observer would recognize. So, for example, as you saw during the session, if I go right to the core of it, I know that I have the ability to play scales. I have the ability to play notated notes, so actually reading notation onto the instrument. I have the ability to strum chords. I have the ability to put those together. I have the ability to sing. I have the ability to actually take the concept of chords and break that into an understanding of harmony and melody, which takes me into the field of music theory at my fingertips. And I have the ability to then take that and use all of those things to create ensemble or solo playing, depending on what your desire is, whether you want to be a solo player or you want to play as part of a group. So what you saw, Anne, was those 7 ingredients, those 7 pieces. And I'd love to take credit for creating a program that has those, but I can't. I have to give that credit to the inventor, J. Chalmers Doane, out of Nova Scotia, out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, where his understanding of the instrument and his ability to take the instrument and use it as a teaching tool allowed children, in his case, and now adults across Canada, as I've continued to teach, and James Hill has continued to do his good work. What's happened is that we've helped bring music literacy through this instrument to literally thousands, and tens of thousands of players. At one time in Langley, we had, believe it or not, as many as 10,000 children playing ukulele on a weekly basis, taking 2 lessons a week in class instruction and learning to be able to play melody notes, harmony notes, sing in 4-part harmony, develop their ear training, develop their ability to read and write and to do notation, and develop their ability to play as an ensemble. I'm seeing Monica Deere online here. Monica is in Edmonton, Alberta, and I know she's doing some of that same sort of thing. I've had the good opportunity to work. I see Moses' picture on there. I haven't seen him move for a while, so I'm assuming it's a picture. Moses has done some of this work with me and through some of his work with James Hill. Marisa and Jerry are now working with me as well. And so hey Moses, aloha. So we've had the ability to take and to share music making with adults. And in fact, Anne, before you get to your questions, maybe what I could do is just share a couple of clips with the folks that show a little bit of the kinds of things that have been done. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, you should be able to share.
Okay. So what I'm going to show you folks first is a clip that was recorded, and it's a short clip recorded of my Legacy Ensemble, which meets actually across the United States, and had a chance to see some of their playing. These are folks that met me as an ensemble in Vegas in March, and we were doing an intense retreat and then performance for the Hawaiian community there at the California Hotel. So this is a little clip from that session, and it's playing Hungarian Dance number 5. This is by Brahms, and showing you the piece played and sort of some of the ability that's come from that. Understand that I handed the music to these folks. I've taught them how to play up the fretboard. I've taught them how to match notation to the instrument. And this is an example of what it sounded like. What you folks will have just heard is a 3-part arrangement with bass and strumming. I don't know if you got much of the bass out of it, but that ability to take notation, to play it, is a product of having an understanding of the instrument along the fretboard, having an understanding of how to read notation, how to place that notation on the fretboard, and how, in fact, to take the instrument and use it as a music-making instrument in an ensemble setting.
Yeah, that's so impressive that they've memorized it and they know the ukulele inside and out. Is that fair to say that?
Well, they're getting there.
Okay.
I mean, and to be blunt with you, one of the advantages of having a sense of the instrument and using ear training is that it then becomes the bedrock on which memory is founded. So if I'm hearing the pitch and I'm hearing the interval and I'm hearing the melody and or hearing my part against the melody, I can then use that inner hearing ability to work towards memory. And it's a great tool. It's a great way to develop the ability to play without music. So Jerry and Marisa were just in Boston with me, and we did a concert that lasted an hour, and the ensemble performed for an hour, and there was no music in front of them. All the music was memorized. All of the music was played from fingers, lyrics from the singing, all done by memory. And that's a product of using the inner ear. That's the product of making sure that your ear is engaged as much as anything in your music making.
I think it's quite kind of what I say opposite spectrum. You have the ukulele clubs, this big movement on one hand, where they go through lots and lots of music, right? You have the song sheets, so it's very much sight reading and not to memorize it. And then the other spectrum is what you're doing, right? Getting people to memorize. And can I just be presumptuous and say, if you try to get people to memorize and get to a performance level, then the number of pieces they can do is much less than if you just get them to read song sheets and perform with song sheets?
Well, let me answer it this way, Anne. How many of you in this group have seen the movie The Mighty Uke?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll be familiar with the students that I used to teach in Langley, the Langley Ukulele Ensemble. All right. They had a repertoire of over 100 songs that was all memorized.
Over how long did that happen? How many years?
Remember, the group has constant turnover.
Right. Okay.
So quite frankly, the average duration, I mean, James Hill was in the ensemble for 11 years. Our son was in the ensemble for 10 years. The average range was 3 to 4 years in the ensemble. And kids would tell me, I've spent this time memorizing this stuff. I'm not quitting now. I got it now. I'm sticking with it. So the bottom line is that it all starts with the notion that I'm not getting you to look at paper. In fact, those of you that have worked with me before, and I'm saying this for the benefit of the others, I taught a session on Sunday morning that some of you observed. I taught the ensemble the song City of New Orleans. They picked it in 4 parts. They sang it in 4 parts. They strummed through it. They played it as a complete arrangement. And I never handed them the music for it until after. So in other words, I taught the piece so that they were using their ears. They were using their knowledge of the instrument so that their focus was on learning, internalizing, understanding, and not on looking at a piece of paper. And so once it's handed to you, then you take your notes, then you make your little practice sessions and how you're going to focus from therein. But if I had started with paper, here's what everybody would have been doing. Let's imagine this is the paper, okay? This is the paper. Here's what I'm over here. Here's what everybody would have been doing. I would have been talking at them over here, and they would have been doing this. And I would have been trying to show them something. They would have been going, uh-huh. And instead of that, their senses, their ears, their eyes were focused on me. Their doing was making music. And if you've got any background at all in education, the most effective way to teach anybody anything is learning by doing. If you're actually doing it, it'll internalize.
So for the 90-minute workshop that I attended last week, and thank you, Marisa and Jerry, for organizing that. What a great opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. It was wonderful.
It was great. So even though we were all given all these handouts and I downloaded them all, I deliberately did not pull them out. I had nothing on my music stand because I wanted to experience just looking at you. And I was amazed how much I got out of that. So are you saying basically, Peter, that if you start from the beginning, that this is the expectation, don't look at your music, people will get used to that? Because what I noticed is a lot of people still went on and grabbed all their sheets and started taking notes. I don't know. I just had a sense that maybe they weren't quite present, you know?
Yeah. So, yes, it is my expectation that folks who work with me will learn that way. And I know it works over 40 years because I've done it for over 40 years and it works. But there's another sort of important aspect to this. All of this needs to be built on scaffolded understanding. So I couldn't ask any one of the people in this call to play something if they didn't know how to play it. So you might recall what I did in my session. And I do this with the understanding that if you don't know what I'm asking you to do, you're not going to be able to do it. But what I do make sure is that I know. I'm very well aware before I stand in front of a group of people that I'm going to teach. I know how the piece goes. I know the arrangement. I have a clear understanding of the components that make it a song or a musical composition. And at the point at which I present it, I'm not looking at paper. So you didn't see me in my session once look at a piece of paper. I had a clear directive, a clear plan, and I knew where I was going, and I followed it as per the music so that they could follow me. Secondly, I make absolutely sure that anything I ask them to do, they can succeed at. It might require some challenge, but they can succeed at. And then thirdly, and this is something that for any of you that teach in a group setting, you have the greatest gift. It's called the synergy of a group. You know, there's a reason why, if I could allude to COVID, there's a reason why online learning is never going to replicate in-person instruction with a group of people. It will never. Why? Because in a group setting, my good friend Mark over here figures out how to do something. And I'm sitting beside Mark, and I can't do it. And what do? I look over at his fingers, and I listen to what he's doing, and I listen to the teacher's instruction, and I use the combination of all that. It's called synergy. It's not cheating to look at my neighbor's fingers. It's not cheating for me to hear what they're doing. You know, I use this example all the time. The day that James Hill left my ensemble, he said, you know, I'm going to miss it. And I said, and we're going to miss you too. And he said, you know, it's kind of heartfelt. You know, you've been in here for so long. And I said, can I tell you something? The group is better because you were in it. And he sort of looked at me and I said, if you're not in it, the kids who are needing a challenge can't look at an example and say, I'm going to do that. Kids all over the world have seen the likes of James Hill and the Langley Ukulele Ensemble play and said, I want to do that. And so when we learn from each other, based on understanding and based on the synergy of what the teacher's instructing us to do, we gain the ability to do this well. The men in my ensemble sing really well. I'm going to tell you why, Anne. Because I sing really well. Now, I'm not telling you I'm a solo singer. I'm not. That's not my gig. But I understand singing technique, and I can demonstrate it. Well, guess what the men are doing? They're emulating it. They're copying it. It's not cheating. Does it also involve some instruction? Yes, I have to talk to them about dropping your jaw, about shaping the vowel, about what it sounds like to sing an A, ah, o, oo. I need to talk to them about pitch. I need to talk to them about but once all of that foundational stuff is there, then they go, well, what is it supposed to sound like? Listen to me. Do it back to me. Wait a minute. Listen again. Try it again. Say to the group, does it sound like the two of us are sounding like one voice? Yes, good. You've arrived. So if I want my people to be able to memorize, to be able to play in the right way, give them every tool at their avail. Give them the rest of the group to look at, to listen to. Heck, the smartest thing a teacher can do is say, hey, could you please play that for me? Mm-hmm. Let the child play it, or the adult play it. Let everybody else hear it, and then compliment that person. In business, we know, you know what you reward? What you want more of. So if I like the sound of something, the dynamic of it in my group is, I love that. Everybody try and play it that way. It doesn't even have to be me. It just needs to be a great example that others can emulate.
I think, so this is good if you start out that way. How do you take people who are so used to having a piece of paper in front of them? Because what I get a lot of is, I'll say I'm giving a workshop, and then people will say, can you give us the handout in advance? Or they would complain in my classes that I did not give them the handout before I started, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna answer your question this way. It may not be the answer you're looking for, but I was just, as you know, in Boston, and I taught a number to all the folks that were in the existing group in that community, and then we were going to do a mass number with my group, the Legacy Ensemble. So I started teaching it, and one of the gals put up her hand and said, are we performing this today? And I said, yeah, tonight. Well, if you wanted us to learn it, why didn't you send us the music with tab? And I said, tell you what, you're going to be playing it together. I'm about to teach it to you. Let's see how it sounds. Just, do you trust me? Just see it. Let's see how it works. Well, the piece was Tequila. I'm going to tell you what ended up happening. I taught it to them. Again, I know the piece. I taught it to them a few sections at a time. I had them succeed. By the end of it, the entire group played the entire piece. And she didn't complain anymore that she didn't have the notes. Now, I sent it as a follow-up the next day. But the reality was they didn't need it anymore. You now know the piece. You know how it goes. Let's just play it. So, quite frankly, put to you, Anne, what I do is I don't give them the music and I teach it to them. And sometimes you're going to get people that are going to say, I want the music up front. So I send it and I do to them what I did with you. I send it and then I just start teaching. And they start following. And they start being successful. And then I teach some more and they're successful some more. And then all of a sudden they realize, geez, I'm not using the paper. And some people will still go back to it and go, but I need it. But you haven't needed it for the last 20 minutes. So it's very much a matter of you as the instructor saying, I'm going to be true to teaching this to you in such a way that it doesn't require you to need to look at the paper.
Yeah. I'm always amazed how in a group setting you get a few people who make it a real point or complain or hold up the class because they're stuck somewhere. And, this whole managing the class is a big thing. Or if you ask someone to play and they flat out say, no, I refuse to.
Yeah, you know what? And I'm glad you raised both of those things because the very first thing you need, all the methodology in teaching, okay? Remember, I've got a master's in education. All the methodology in teaching tells you straight off, right off the top, that in order for you to be able to teach, the students have to listen.
Yeah.
Look, if you listen, you will learn. Guaranteed or your money refunded in full. You will learn. You might learn slower than the person next to you, less than the person beside you, but you will learn. Getting their attention and getting them to follow you is key one. Number two is motivating them through success. So, you've raised it beautifully. You've said, that you ask them to play and they won't. You know what? I never hold that against them. I always will say, no problem. I get it. I clearly haven't set an environment where you feel safe enough yet. It's okay.
For me, I think it has to do with the size of the class. I'm talking about in Zoom. If it's like, a safe size, people will. But if it's over a certain number, like 10, for some reason, becomes intimidating, especially if they don't know anybody or something. But let's open questions out in the with Colin, I left the questions too late, so we didn't manage to get any questions in. Does anybody have any questions? Who's experienced Peter Luongo's teaching? Okay, we're preaching.
We have, me and Jerry have.
Yeah, there's Moses. Yeah.
All right, we're preaching to the choir. Rick, you haven't, but you've been nodding your head. So.
Well, we learn in Hawaii the same way. We by the way, Peter, Brian Tolentino said to say hi. I was talking to him this morning.
You say aloha to Brian. I'll have to give him a call and connect with him. Thank you, my friend.
So, Peter teaches the same kind of things that we did in Hawaii growing up. I mean, we never learned what the notes were. We just played what the instructor was. He had the arrangement. We followed. In fact, what I didn't realize was I started picking up his strum patterns, how he did his strum patterns, because I was listening to what was going on. I was observing. So he's and you're right, because I taught tennis and golf. If your student's not listening, you're done as the teacher. So you have to sometimes, like for us, we have to figure out, okay, how do I get them to engage? And so you it is Anne has the hardest job because there's so much people. I want the paper. All of my private students all want the paper in front of them. And I get them to learn without the paper. And then they realize they get weaned off of paper less and less. And the paper is just a guide. And then they just glance at it and they play. That's, to me, the most important thing.
Yeah. Thanks for all of that, Rick. Anne, I'm going to give you an example of something that I've done. So there's a piece that I've taught a number of folks called Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring, okay? And when I've taught the piece, one of the things that I've done is I've said, here's the music, and then they put it aside. And I'll take the very opening intro to it, which goes like so. Now, that's not very complicated. In fact, if I break it down, my middle finger never left the fretboard. It stayed on there the entire time. I played the C, I lift it, there's the B. I essentially am playing this. That's it. C, D, F, E. That's what Bach did through the beginning of that, and he played a little passage in between. It's all based on the C chord to D minor to F to C. Well, guess what? I've handed them the music. I don't allude to it. I just get the folks to play what I just played. And I get it broken down to a point where I start with this. Guys, could you all please put 2 fingers down? Do it again. Do it again. I said, I'm going to play a note. You do it. So you do, I'm going to play. And then what I do is I say, did you hear what I played? I'm going to sing it to you. Sing it back to me. Got it? Just play these notes. Da, 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 da. Beautiful. You guys over here, you play this. You guys do this. Okay, now switch. Okay, now everybody do it together. Guess what? Within 5 minutes, they're all playing the introduction. So then what I do is I've got somebody that's really smart, really able. I'll say, hey guys, you know what thirds are, right? You know that this is C to B. What's a third above C? E, right. Play a third above it. Now, the other kids are going, well, what's that about? And I said, don't worry about it. Just you do it over here. You guys do that. You guys do the melody. Go. And now they hear how cool it sounds. Guess what the kids in the middle want to be able to do? The harmony. So you know what I do? And Rick knows about this. You know what I do? I let them go for recess and bring their ukuleles with them. Guess what's happening? They're teaching each other the harmony. So I don't have to teach it. All I have to do is light the fuse. If I light the fuse, they'll want to learn from each other. Adults are no different. They will feel security in learning from each other. And yes, they'll get probably more spoon-fed than I would give them, because they'll actually sit down and say, no, you put your fingers here and here and here. And pretty soon you start third above means 3 notes above the melody pitch, C to B, E to D. Got it. So what ends up happening is that the learning becomes a community of learning, which Rick and the Hawaiians get 100%. So, I have to tell this quick story. Rick, I interviewed Roy Sakuma for NAM, Roy and Kathy. And Roy tells a story of making up notation in his system.
I was at that. I was watching that.
So what Roy was saying was he had kids going up to him saying, yeah, okay, but when are we going to learn to make music? And Marisa, I've been teaching you. You've been strumming. No. When are we going to learn? You know what they were saying? I want to know when to learn how to play melodies and harmonies. And so what ended up happening, I interviewed Chalmers Doan after. Guess what? Chalmers told the same story. I had a kid come up to me. Chalmers says, I had a kid come up to me and ask me, Mr. Doan, this is great, but when are we going to learn to make music? And it was all about learning how to play the notes and connect them. Well, Anne knows I had the group learning to play, but you know what? That's only up one octave. That's a B, so's this. 2 octaves. Well, now all of a sudden I've opened up the door. The kids, well, you mean the notes work all the way up? Yeah, they sure do. Now all of a sudden they've got an understanding that there's a fretboard and it works. And if I can teach them the first position chords, C, F, and G7, that works all the way up the fretboard. It has the same shape, except it works chromatically up the fretboard. Well, now all of a sudden you've got the kids being able to say, okay, what key do you want to play this in, Mr. Luongo? Well, let's take the key of F. All right, here it is. I can play any 3-chord, any 4-chord song you want, all up and down the fretboard by just using the C shape, F shape, G7 shape, A minor shape. But you know what? I don't like that shape. I want to play here. Okay, use the D shape. Use the A shape. Use the G7 shape. I mean, as soon as they have an understanding, you know what we've done, you guys? We've given our students the ability to fish. We don't have to hand them the meal anymore. They can start to discover and learn on their own. So my goal is to make sure that I'm obsolete. I'm not needed.
So, Peter, I have a question, which is this movable chord shapes and movable scales. To me, that really opens up, the entire ukulele. At what point, how early on do you introduce that?
Oh, great question. So everybody here understands. Yeah, thumbs up. You all know what the movable scale and the movable chords are. Okay, good. So bottom line is everything starts in first position. So there's no point moving a C scale up the fretboard until they can play a C scale. In thirds. That's great. They understand it's a fretted instrument and that it works chromatically. Then you start teaching them, okay, because you need a new scale. You need the scale of F. That's the point at which I start up here and I, based on tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, they've got it. It's cross string just like, but it's up here. So then I apply it, and that's a critical element to this. Whatever we teach then gets applied. Now there's a point to why they learned it. If I'm going to do my movable chords, first positions. So C, F, G7, D, A, E7. Obviously, there's C, D, F, F. My F chord, my B flat chord that goes with it, that is actually the A shape, C7. Okay. Then my G. And this gets tricky because the G is a movable chord, but it's a tricky movable chord because you've got this hand position here. Okay? Tough for kids. So I'm very hesitant to do that. Okay? So you've got your A, you've got your C, you've got your D shape, you've got your F shape. I usually leave the G shape out, and I gradually move those up the fretboard so that they become aware of those chord positions and are able to move them up. And then I apply it. Okay? If I want to play, notice F chord, A chord, D7. They've got to know that this is an A7 chord. Oh, sorry, G7, right? G7, C7, C9, F. Well, now they're understanding that I'm playing the melody off of the A string and I'm positioning my chords where I need them to be able to get the melody pitch to ring out. And so now they're able to apply, the melody moves along here. And they're able to find the chord. fretboard, the chord that fits with that. So it's a gradual process. And when do you know to move? Well, it moves in a sequence. You have to make sure that your students are able to do those things with understanding, not by rote. Some will be rote learning, but with understanding, then you can apply that G7 chord to another piece, and they don't need you to tell them how to do it, where to do it, when to do it. They start to figure it out. Well, that's the G7 I need.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. No, that's really good. I'm thinking also of club leaders like Mark, me, and others, and Marisa and Jerry. A lot of people, they come to our weekly or fortnightly jam sessions, and they pick up new things like new chords because they want to do a song, but they don't all weave together. It's like, oh, we need this chord, so we're going to go up here. So we just learned that chord, so they've memorized it's down here. All right, both Rick and Mark want to say something about that. Okay, who wants to go first? All right, Rick, you got your hand up first.
Okay, on the part where he's talking about how we listen and learn, for the group leaders, this just came to my head right now. Don't let them use a tuner, because we didn't have tuners growing up. Our instructor would play the note, and we all had to tune by what he was tuning. See, I see Peter nodding, because you have to know what it sounds like. And so I teach my students that too. I go like this. Okay, when you play the note, sing it as you're tuning it, because you have to learn what the pitch is. And a lot of times, most of these players don't know what the pitch is. They don't know that they're playing the wrong chord. They don't know that they're not in tune. They don't know. We knew. We had to learn that the hard way. So for the group leaders, I think that might be a really good thing for you guys to introduce to your groups. Have them tune to you. You tune up and have them tune to you.
Just like an orchestra, right?
Yeah.
Right. You need to find somebody who's the oboist or the violinist and all
First
that.
violin, yep.
Right, the first violin. Okay, Mark, how do you? Thank you very much, Rick.
I just wanted to reiterate something that Peter said, which is that Zoom was probably a lifesaver in terms of keeping people together, and especially ukulele groups together during the quarantine phase of the pandemic. But it's really frustrating aspect of it is that when somebody else is playing, you can hear them, so you can play with them, but people can't hear each other. And I'm glad Peter said what he said about that, because I can't overestimate the value of being in a group and hearing all the other people in the group playing while you're playing. Because if you do something wrong, if you run through a stop sign and don't wait the right number of beats to start the next musical phrase, you hear everybody else do that and you realize that you're doing something different. You can't do that on Zoom. And that's been really frustrating. In fact, we got together before the Delta variant came along. Our group got together in person twice last summer. And for the first 20 minutes, it was so obvious that we weren't even listening to each other. We'd forgotten how to do that. People were just doing their own thing and in their own heads. And it was really, just so obvious that we'd forgotten how to do that. It's just such a valuable part of playing music is hearing other people.
Well, and I'm going to tell you that I've noticed the exact same thing, Mark, with my church choir. We went for the entire pandemic. They stopped having the choir sing at church. There were three. My wife and I lead the music, so she played piano. I sang as a soloist, and I had two other females. So we had tenor, soprano, alto. When the choir came back, it was as if I had to reteach them to sing. And it was really discouraging because Mark's exactly right. Before I could reteach him to sing, I had to reteach him to listen. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you do with the legacy group for the 2 years you were working with them? How did you get them to stay in sync?
I continued to teach online, and I used a program called Upbeat, which they've submitted recordings to. And then I used those recordings to give them feedback. Some of them didn't like it, folks, because You know, you can't hide when it's your recording. It's like,
Right.
yeah, I mean, I had people say to me, I nailed it. It was perfect. And so I sent them back the recording of their performance. Listen to bar 16. Does that sound perfect to you? You know, and there's a difference between kids. Kids will look at me and they'll go, yes, Mr. Luongo. And an adult will look at me and go, shit, he caught me.
Hey,
They don't
Peter.
like it.
Yeah,
Yes.
Peter, this is Moses. I use the same technique for my ensemble. We continue to rehearse every week for the 2 years. But I had them submit recordings, and when the recordings came back, so when we got together for our first gig, you're right. I had to reteach them how to listen. I had to reteach them how to blend because some of them love to sing really loud. I go, no, pull that volume back a little bit. But it didn't take me that long to get them back to where they were because over the 2 years we were working on technique. And they were getting personalized feedback saying, okay, watch your pitch when you go from this note to that note. That's only a half a step. Don't try to make it a full step because you're overshooting the note and things like that. So they really enjoyed the personalized technique. And now we're back into group things. It's a different dynamic. But we knew it was not the ideal position to be in, but we made the best of the situation.
Yeah. There is software that'll let people play together, but it doesn't seem to be widely used for some reason. I don't
It's
know.
not. You know what, Jerry? It's a problem because it's not in sync.
Yes, it is.
No, you know, Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry, I have to agree with Peter. There's problems because if you have different people with different network dynamics and they're over Wi-Fi at their house versus I'm plugged in high speed. I got a 1 gigabit right to my fiber optic in my house to the fiber optic on the street. So I got a really big pipe. So I don't have a whole lot of delay. There will be delay.
You mean even with I don't want to get into this deeply, but even with Sound Jack and Sonobus and all of those guys?
Oh yeah, because you're running through a server that's someplace else. So how you get to that server
Okay.
is highly dependent on how your configuration is. I can sync with the server pretty quickly, but someone else who's off of a laptop of a Wi-Fi in their house may not.
Okay. I appreciate that.
So let me give you an example of. I'm going to play for you an example, not a full song, but a portion of a piece that was done, totally taught online, totally performed online with Upbeat during COVID. We submitted this to the Hawaiian Ukulele Festival in year 49. No, year 50. This was our submission. Here you go. I'll open this first, this way, and I'll minimize it there, and I'll share with you guys. This is Kavika. Oh, just a minute. I'm going to make sure that I give you both, otherwise it won't come across. Optimized for sound. Go video clip. Come on. All right. Well, let's hope it works. Here we go. You'll let me know, I know. I'll push ahead. I'll stop it right there.
I recognize Cindy and Deb.
Yes.
Yep.
So it gives you an idea of what can be accomplished. It's very doable, but again, it takes that feedback, and it was hours of back and forth with them to make sure that they had a full appreciation of what was being expected.
Well, I want to thank you so much. Our meetings come to an end. Thank you so much, Peter, for giving your precious time to be with us, sharing your. Thank you so much. If we have any more questions, I suppose we could write to you. Yeah.
Yeah, you can send any email to Ukeman, UK. Here, I'll put it in the chat so that you guys have got it.
You're off to the UK next.
I am. I actually just in Boston last week, been in New York this week, off to Anaheim in early June for the NAMM show, and Legacy is joining me there for that performance, and then off to the UK for the Gnuff event, and then actually we'll have to come and see you, Rick and Brian. We're coming in July to Hawaii with the Legacy group to do a week-long tour. And then after that, I'm at Midwest Uke Fest in August in Michigan. So yeah, it's busy time.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Be well, everybody. Take care of yourselves. I look forward to our next time. Good to see some of my old friends again.
Good to see you again.
Take care. All the best, folks.
Peter.
Aloha.
So everyone, don't go yet, because whose dog is that?
Sorry, Mayan.
So I want to just say, let's see. We didn't get to talk as much today. Today was an exception. But we don't actually have a topic for next time, for June or forward. And some of you have actually submitted, filled out the form. I just want to share it a little bit. What, I don't know if you all know about the form, but, different people have shared, see if I can make it bigger, what you're interested in, anything specific. And since a lot of people don't care if their names are known to everybody, maybe I'll make it possible for everybody who fills out the form to be able to see this. Yeah, to be able to see this. Topics that people are interested or can teach, topics you're interested in, playing technique methods, music theory, strumming techniques, different methods for teaching, everything, anything, intro to voice, reading music. It's just a matter of putting it together and then, finding experts to answer those. And then the other one is that of timing. We've been meeting so far for 2 years, and third Saturday seems to work. But Mark, when the weather gets better, your group may go out. I'm just wondering if we want to change it. The good thing about either the second or the third Saturday is when it comes to Christmas and New Year and Thanksgiving, we don't have to shift anything around, right? So.
Yeah, I also know that there are time of day issues because we're a global organization and people in different parts of the world have to be here at different times of their days. At the moment, if my group goes outdoors, we're going to do it in the late morning, which makes being here in what for me is the early afternoon difficult. But, in a pre-COVID world, we met in the evening on Saturday, which would make afternoon perfectly fine.
Well, I don't mind moving it to a second Saturdays, if that makes things better for you. Does anybody else mind at this time? Still 5 o'clock Eastern time?
No, I mean, I'm like Mark, and it's going to depend on what we have planned. So whatever time you have it is just, if I can make it, I can make it. If I can't, I can't. It's just way schedules go sometimes.
All right. Okay. Great. And Steve, you just have to get up early.
Yeah, I got up at 6 a.m., got my breakfast, and ready for you at 7 on Sunday morning.
Wow. Yeah. And
But when I saw the speakers you had there, I thought I set the alarm and there was no way I was going to miss it.
oh, good, good.
Yeah.
Well, I have tons of topics. I would love, experts to come and address them. And I'm open to all sorts of suggestions from everybody. And I could use a co-host. I don't know, Mark, you did a splendid job last time, and now that you're retired, maybe you would consider.
Mark, you're retired? I thought you would never retire.
I thought I would never retire either. Working from home did me in.
So the next meeting normally would be the third Saturday in June. Do we want to bring it to the second Saturday? I think, Mark, you're the only one that makes it,
Well, and I just want to be clear with people. I'm still not sure that we're going to be meeting outdoors in June. COVID cases are up here in the Bay Area, and hospitalizations are not up. But I don't want to become a spreader event, even if I don't send people to the hospital. So I'm playing it by ear for the third Saturday in June. So, and the other thing is that even if you do hold it at 2, we meet from 11 to 1. It just requires me to dash back really fast and probably be a little bit late. So, the group should do what you all want to do, and I'll fit in.
Okay. Well, shall we meet on the third Saturday then, the 18th? I know it's Father's Day. Is Father's Day on Sunday, the 19th of June, or Friday? Not sure.
Sunday.
Sunday.
Sunday is Father's Day.
Right.
Right.
Not everywhere.
Right. Yeah, not everywhere.
Unless you're going to Porch Fest on the 18th, Arlington.
Right. Porch Fest. Yeah.
And I'm having a pet parade on the 18th.
Oh. Oh, well. All right.
Everybody come to Boston.
Go do your pet parade. Well, we could stop live stream and we could chit chat more, or does anybody want this recorded for the record? Anything you want to bring up, a specific topic you want to talk about or learn? Was today useful?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
And I
Yep.
thought, since Jeanne is new, I thought we might give her an opportunity to share what her teaching role
Yeah,
has been.
introduce yourself. Yeah, Jeannie, you probably don't know this, but in the previous meetings, we would go around the world introducing ourselves, So many of us know each other already. So please introduce yourself. If you unmute. Sorry, yeah, great.
I'm a musician. I've sung my whole life and played the guitar since I was 18, and then switched to ukulele as I got older. And so I've had a lot of fun teaching older people how to play, and I really like teaching music theory along with it. And I've had some students tell me how much they loved learning about music, because most of these people don't know anything about music. They never took music. They don't know anything. But I had one student, all she wanted to do was just be able to sit in the group and play with the group out of the book. And she didn't want to hear anything about music theory or how you could play up the neck or how you could figure out, if you know how to play D7, then E flat 7 is 1 fret up. It was like, nah. So I found that really interesting. But, and I love to teach, and I was teaching music theory to elementary kids for a while. That was really fun. So I love to teach and I love to sing, and I like to encourage people to do what they think they can't do. And that the great thing about the ukulele is that, as I played all the instruments because I went to school and had to take a semester of strings, high strings, low strings, brass, the whole bit. And the ukulele is the easiest one to play, to get to participate. But I have to explain to other people that, no, it's not a toy. You can play any kind of music on the ukulele. You can play, classical music on the ukulele, and I play some videos for them, and their eyes open up, and their minds expand. So it's a very versatile instrument that you can go as far as you want to go on it. And that's what I try to tell people. Yes, it's so accessible, but it will take you all the way, just like the violin or any other instrument. So anyway, and I probably won't be at the next month. I have surgery on the 9th, and I probably won't be here with y'all next month.
So thank you, Jeanne. Well, I'd like to propose a topic. Today Peter mentioned it, and Bruce and I have been co-teaching a voice class. And usually I teach rhythm and he teaches voice, but this time around I decided to create voice exercises using the ukulele. And I know, Monica, you're a vocalist. I would like to propose a topic of, using the ukulele to teach voice, teach singing. And I know, Mark, this happens in your group. How do you get people to start in tune, to stay in tune, to realize they're not in tune?
I discovered that the B flat shape provides you with the 1, 1, 3, 5, 8 when you play it up and then down. You get da 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 da, and all you have to do is move that shape up the neck to do that in every key.
Oh, I'll make that my next vocal exercise then, vocal drill. Thanks. How about that? Yeah. Use the ukulele, because when I look at all these voice videos, they always use the piano. Maybe 2 videos they use the ukulele. Is it because they don't play the ukulele, or is it because we ukulele players, we don't do this? We don't tune our voices. We don't warm up our voices.
James Hill does a whole workshop on that, which is brilliant. Right. He just assigns everybody to a string and has you play whatever note is being played on that string when you play the chord shape.
Yeah. Okay.
That's called singing with strings. Chalmers has been doing that forever. Singing for me, it's all about listening. And piano, you plunk out the melody in whatever range whoever's singing, a male range, a female, so they can match the pitch there. So I would guess that that's probably why piano is more an instrument that's used for. So it'd be interesting to see if you can match here, like for a male voice, it's going to be different. Singing is, for me, it's about listening. It's equally listening and voice, right? And interesting. Some interesting thoughts. I think too, for me, the biggest thing is if we're strumming chords while we're singing, those are 2 functions, harmony and melody. So to get people to understand the difference between that.
Yeah, one of my issues has always been with singing, and I started out many years ago in a folk band, but trying to play a guitar chord, and then if you're not familiar with the song, thinking where is the melody in that chord, and so to me, like there are many songs that start with a note that's in the chord, but there is equally many that start with a note that isn't in the chord that you're holding down. And so like I always, many of the song sheets that I've prepared for my group, and there's hundreds of them now, but I actually put what the starting notes are, right? So that the people can go, that they get the first sort of 4 or 5 notes of the song, so that you can then play them, and then you've got that and you can hear it, you've got that in your head and you're ready to start. And particularly, like, one thing I find is, like, I can't sing Beatles songs in the Beatles key, right, because my voice is lower. So in your head, you've got the Beatles song and you know where it is and pitched, but when you play it on the ukulele, a 5th lower, suddenly it's not the right thing you're hearing in your head, because it's on the ukulele a 5th lower and you need to sing it down there. So this matching of the pitch to the key that you're playing in. So pitch of the melody to the key that you're playing in is where I find, and a lot of people in my group have a similar issue. So we often go ding 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 ding, and, and starting right. That's the melody we're going to start with. Then we do the intro. So yeah, I think the idea of talking melody and that scalar thing is a great idea, so people can hear it and pitch it. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Great. So maybe we could share some examples of, and like do a vocal exercise so we all experience it if you have one, like Monica, and let's do that then. Voice next time. All right. Thank you.